Hey guys, when you're taking your anatomy physiology exam, you really want to be able to practice how you play. So you want to get your hands on these models as much as possible and work through them in the anatomy labs. So the way that the skull kind of breaks down is that you actually have facial bones, which are pretty much everything down here. And then you actually have the rest of the cranium, which is everything here and a few inside. So there are 8 bones over here. And then there's 14 facial bones, which actually makes up 22. Now, on your test, you're going to have like a little piece of paper, like this one I wrote down 21. It's going to be stuck to a bone. And on your answer sheet, you got to be like, oh, question 21 means what's on this bone. And you're going to move station to station and so forth, so on. All right, guys, let's go over the bones of the face. So to understand, the bones of the face start here and go all the way down here. There are 14 bones. Every bone is a pair except for 2 individual bones. So starting from the bottom here, there's your mandible. It's the strongest bone of the face, and it's the only one that can move, obviously. Now, they may ask you a bonus question in reference to your tongue. The bone that suspends and helps the tongue is the hyoid bone. It's like a horseshoe bone. If they ask you that, at least you know. And then everything else is essentially a pair except for one more bone. So this is your maxilla bones. This is your left and your right, makes up the majority of your face. You take it out a little bit. These are your cheekbones. So that's zygomatic left, zygomatic bone of the right. Now in the nose area, you have several bones to look at. So going for the middle, this is an individual bone called a vomer. I think Homer Simpson, and for whatever reason, I would never forget that, the vomer. And then if you look at these ones here, these are the nasal bones, obviously. So you actually have the inferior nasal conchae on the right side and left inferior nasal conchae. And you have to be careful to say if it's on the left on the right, or you could get a half point, depending how your instructor does it. Now, if we just go up here, you have the nasal bridge. So you have the left nasal bone and the right nasal bone. And you go to the orbit. In your orbit, you have the lacrimal bone. So the lacrimal would be the left lacrimal, the right lacrimal. And these are where, around this area of your tear ducts, it's in your inner canthus area, and these are the bones underneath all of that. Last 2 facial bones are found in the mouth. You take your tongue, run it to the roof of your mouth, and you would touch the palatine bone. You have the right side and the left side. It's this hard bone over here. It integrates with 3 different cavities. They may ask you this as a bonus question or just part of the test. It integrates with the oral cavity, the nasal cavity, as well as the eye cavities, the eye sockets, the orbits. Let's go over the 8 bones of the skull. 4 individual bones, and there's 2 sets of pairs in there. So starting from the top over, this is the frontal bone. The frontal bone covers the frontal lobe of your brain, and it's kind of like the forehead area. Now going to the back over here, down the middle, you have this jagged suture line. It separates the left and the right parietal bones. Parietal, it literally means border or side or wall. So you could think that about the sides, the top sides of your skull. Going over here, you have the occipital bone. This covers the part of your brain that controls your eyesight. Now, just inferior to the parietals, you have the temporal bones. Temporal bone, the right side, and temporal bone, the left side. Now, traveling straight across, you have this bone. This is called the sphenoid bone. You're going to see on this model, it's the same color because it's the same exact bone. You get a better look over here. This one here is the sphenoid bone up here. Now in front of it sits the ethmoid bone. The ethmoid bone is actually connected to both the sphenoid and the palatine bone. So ethmoid is kind of trapped or enclosed. So think ethmoid enclosed. And that's where it kind of sits. And then the front of it, you can kind of see that's part of the ethmoid. That's the vomer, which we talked about earlier. But over here, they may ask you, bonus or otherwise, that's the foramen magnum. That's where the medulla oblongata comes down, that controls your heart rate, your breathing, and so forth. If they should ask you, the foramen magnum. Let me open this up for you. All right, so just took this off. You're gonna actually still see the vomer through the nasal cavity, and then over here, sphenoid, ethmoid, and then the front maxilla, nasal bridge, and such. So let's take this off. Now you have the ethmoid. So you have the vomer and the ethmoid. Now you're gonna notice the ethmoid is very porous. This to help with the sensation, sensory, and so forth of the area. And essentially in the beginning, all you need to know is the ethmoid is an enclosed bone and where it is. Now over here, I mean, no wonder why they call it the butterfly shaped bone. It's the sphenoid bone. It looks just like a butterfly, right? Now the main thing here, if they do ask you bonus questions, most likely they do, it's going to be focused on this area here. So this here is called the sella turcica, which essentially just means Turkish saddle, which apparently Turkish saddles are very deep for comfort. The reason that's important for the sella turcica is that the pituitary gland sits right in here. The master gland for the body sits right in here. So think of it kind of like the pituitary gland's throne.